Hello,
Hi,
Ryan.
Martha.
Feel you,
Planet
brother.
House.
Feel you, brother.
Yeah.
Take it easy.
Great. Hi, Martha. I knew that.
Hello, Ryan.
In case you didn't know.
It's great to have you. So let me tell you something. Last night, I went to bed at 1 a.m. watching The Adam Project,
boy.
which is launching pretty soon in Mexico and Latin America. And so my husband was with me and he said, God, this is an awesome movie. And he turned around and looked at me and I'm like crying nonstop because it's a very entertaining movie. But I usually on my shows, we've talked so much about our inner child. And there's one thing that resonated with me so much when you said, I've been running away from you all my life. And now I realize the best part of me is you.
Yeah.
That was it. That was it for me. That was it for me. And I love that you've been so open about your own childhood. So we'll talk about the movie and everything, but I want to start there. Like, what does this meaning have? What does this movie have as a meaning regarding how you connect with your inner child? Because I think that's something that we struggle with so much, everybody.
Yeah, well, I think everybody has a slightly more complicated relationship with, the version that they've of themselves that they've sort of come from. I for one am, spent a lot of my early life being pretty self-loathing. So some of this stuff is real. It's sort of, I think this film takes an interesting approach that I get to meet up with my younger self, but I'm not caring and compassionate with my younger self. I don't like me, and I don't like me as a kid. And I think it's a pretty fresh and unique take on this kind of concept. So, that's the journey in the movie. The journey is that this, in essence, my character has to kind of learn to love himself in a way. I mean, learn to sort of acknowledge that his younger self is the reason we got here, and the reason we're still alive and that sort of stuff. So there's a reconnection there that I think is really quite interesting and weirdly personal for me. I mean, that's a lot of this is how I felt about, my younger self when I think back. So.
And I think it's so lovely that you being who you are so open about it and to be vulnerable and expose yourself about your own childhood, because at the end, I think that that's what everybody in this world is trying to do, like reconnect with your true self, which is the inner child that we all have. So you've talked a lot about your childhood. Father's Day will be coming up, in the next few months, and it's something that we all struggle with. And that's been also part of your journey. And I think it's also something that is reflected in this movie.
Yeah, I had a very complicated relationship with my father. I think that I'm not alone there. I think many, many, many people
I feel you, brother.
have.
I feel you, brother.
Yeah, I think it's very normal to have a complicated relationship with your parents. My parents also were of a certain generation where it was a little bit different. There was a little, I think, a little bit less nuance and understanding with respect to their kids. And there's a moment in the movie that I sort of, I say something to the effect of, my younger self says to me, I know why you're so mad at dad, or I know why you hate dad. And I sort of say, why is that? Is it because he was a narcissist? Is it because he never came home after work? Is it because, and he says, you hate him because he died. And I think there's something very interesting about that. And that's a line I wrote for the film because it was a line that was actually very resonant. It was something that I felt with my own father, which is that, I wasn't upset about the things I thought I was upset about. I think I was upset about him passing away because it was kind of easier to be upset with him or angry with him than it was to miss him. And I think that happens to a lot of people as well. So that's another thing that's tackled in the film. But overall, I mean, the way we're describing it, it sounds like this is some hard drama. But the movie's actually very much reminiscent of the movies I grew up with, like E.T., and it's a big wish fulfillment, high concept film with a lot of comedy and a lot of fun, but it also has a real centered heart to it that
Exactly.
I
think and let me quote exactly what you said, because those two phrases is what really stuck with me. You know, I'm more of a sentimental, emotional, psychologically experimental type. So you said it's easier to be angry than to be sad.
There you go. That's what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
I won't forget it ever. And I think that happens to a lot of people. And I absolutely agree with you. It's like my husband, who's on the other spectrum, found it like so entertaining, so funny. At the beginning, when you meet, you know, yourself younger, I mean, you're bullying the child to tears, but in such a funny, kind way. And it's such an amazing, you know, like sci-fi movie as well.
Yeah. There's a real kind of high concept sort of wish fulfillment factor that these are like the movies I grew up with that I fell in love watching as a kid, and the movies that made me want to work in movies were, you know, Back to the Future and E.T. and, you know, anything by Spielberg and Zemeckis sort of were the films that I aspired to be a part of. And this sort of had all those elements. It's in a way, it feels almost like it almost feels old fashioned in that context. You know, there's obviously no previous IP or superheroes as a totally original film, but it also tackles, you know, time travel and wish. Imagine if you could meet your younger self, and what would you say to your younger self? Imagine if you could meet your mom and your dad, and they're the same age as you. I mean, it's such a different conversation that you would have with these people than when they're elders. You know, there's something interesting about coming face to face with you know, your father and having to reconcile your issues with him when you are actually the same age, your peers.
Absolutely. And that scene at the bar, I don't want to spoil it for everybody. That scene at the bar is what every mother and father in this world would like to hear.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing okay.
Yeah, and also, you know, that's a very true. That scene smacked us with a lot of truth to me, because it was something my brothers and I said to my mom, which, you know, when my dad passed away, and we said, you know, we're going to come back for you. We will always come back for you. And that's true. The boys, my three older brothers and I, we sort of circled the wagons around my mom and made sure that she was, you know, that we were taking care of her emotionally and in every other way. And boys always come back for their mamas. I think that's something true about that.
Absolutely. And you know what I was thinking when I saw the movie yesterday? And I don't know why I saw a lot of you in that movie. Mm-hmm. Because if there's something that we love about you, is how your humor. I mean, even your tweets with Blake Lively, I mean, I get such a kick out of it. And I think that that's what happens during the movie is actually what needs to happen during life. You have these like serious, really deep felt, reflective moments, and then you need humor to like lighten up, you know, whatever's going on.
Yeah, I think life is, you know, to a certain degree, a spectrum each and every day. You know, it's not, no one moment or no one day is one moment alone. It's many moments all sort of put together, and I think that's what filmmaking is. You know, you have to sort of fill it with the full spectrum of human emotion, and when you do that, I think it inevitably feels a little bit better. It's like, I think comedies work better with a little bit of drama, and I think dramas work better with a little bit of comedy. So you kind of have to put it all in the mix. But
you've sort of said that being so funny and using humor has also been a way to like compensate the difficult times in your life.
Well, I would never claim to be funny, but I will say that
But you are. Trust me, you are.
Thank you. To a certain degree, I've always used, you know, humor as a self-defense mechanism. I'm the youngest of 4 boys in my house, 5 if you could have counted my father as well. So I wasn't going to get by on, you know, on my fists or my strength. I was going to get by on my wit to a certain degree, and I had to. And that I found diffused a lot of situations. You know, being able to kind of get out of it with a bit of a silver tongue, you know, saved my life at a young age in a lot of ways, and it kept that younger version of me quite safe. And it was something that I carried over into adulthood, but also now as I'm, you know, have my own family, I recognize it for what it is, which is a self-defense mechanism. That's really nothing more. There's not much more you can read into it than that, but it is a way to stay safe. You know?
That's amazing. So it's about time travel. The Adam Project is definitely something that we all have to see because it's entertaining. But if you're willing to, you know, like dig in a little bit deeper, there's a lot of lessons in that. And I would ask you, if you could time travel, where would you go back to? And the one thing that you would change?
Wow. Oh God. Well, if I could go try, let's keep the experiment controlled. So I would go back to some point in my life and change something in my life, change the trajectory in my life somehow, some way. What would I change? You know something? I know that it's probably not the answer you're looking for, but like, I really believe all the crappy things that happen to us in life are sort of part of the recipe, right? I mean, you know, all roads kind of lead to here. And I'm very lucky to be in the position I'm in life. So I wouldn't look back. I would look back at all those, you know, scrapes and bumps in the road as you know, lessons. I mean, I've learned more from failures in life than I've ever learned from successes. So, you know, and I'm pretty proud of myself when I look back. I'm proud of my younger self for getting up and dusting myself off and carrying on. So I don't think I would change anything in my past. You know, even my most, you know, critically awful, embarrassing moments that I still cringe at. I think those are all sort of what made me who I am today. And, you know, I deserved those moments because I built them myself. You know, I deserved those failures at the time because I did them to myself. So it's, yeah, tricky.
No, I totally agree. I was actually expecting that answer, because I think that everybody who has done a little bit of work on themselves understand that we are the result of everything and of everyone that has been in our life and that has happened in my life.
Yeah.
So there must be, when you saw that movie, it also makes you think. What is the one thing you said you would never do as a father and have done? And the thing that you always wanted to do and have not done? That's a tough question for you.
Yeah, that is a tough question. I guess the thing that I've done that I always said I wouldn't do is, you know, there are times when, you know, we as a family will be flying somewhere across country or something like that, and you're on a plane full of people and you have one of your kids is just, you know, screaming or freaking out. I'll do that thing where I stick a phone in her hand, you know, here, watch Frozen. You know, so that's the thing I said I would never do, but I've done that more times than I care to admit. But I think I'm not alone. I think most parents have had those moments. And the one thing that I've always wanted to do and have not done yet, boy, you know, the pandemic kind of, you know, I think for a lot of people, you know, we created some barriers of experience, you know, so I've always wanted to do like a cross. I'm from Canada, so I've always wanted to cross Canada with my kids from one coast to the other. So at some point I'd like to do that. I don't know, maybe we'd all just drive each other insane in an RV or something like that, but it would be fun.
Now, to finish this conversation, you talked about the pandemic, and there's so many people that will be watching and listening to this conversation that have lost their father or that have lost their mother. And you've been through that with your dad. And I know it was a complex relationship. So what would you say to everybody out there that you would like to have said to your father when he was still alive?
You know, I mean, I'll save what I said to my father, but I think in and of itself, therein lies the rub, right? Like that's the most important part, is having an opportunity. You know, take the opportunity whenever you can to say whatever you need to say to anyone that you love. You know, because we all know that life is unpredictable and we all know how fleeting it is. So, you know, I think that's my only sort of piece of advice is if you know anybody is in a situation where they're lucky enough to have both parents that are still around, you know, make sure that they you know, understand how you feel, you know, or just close whatever chapters you have to close. You know, sometimes you're going to have, sometimes it's a difficult conversation, but I can't say anything bad has ever come out of really tough, difficult, emotional conversations. Usually it's a better understanding of each other. And I think, you know, fathers and sons and mothers and sons and, you know, and vice versa, fathers and daughters and mothers and daughters, they have complicated relationships. There's lots to kind of hash out. It's tricky, you know, parents do the best they can, you know. I think I think a lot of people understand that, but in practice, it's a little bit different.
Absolutely. So why should people watch The Adam Project?
Oh man, I just think, I love movies that are about a feeling, and the last film I did with Sean Levy was a movie called Free Guy, which I love. And really the feeling we really wanted to pull out of that was joy. And I think with The Adam Project, we really want to sort of pull out the feeling of warmth. There's a kind of warmth to this movie that I think reminds me of the movies I grew up on and fell in love with as a kid. And and there's something really beautiful about experiencing nostalgia. I think everyone will have something in this film that they can relate to on some level. And also it's just an amazing ride, to be doing a time travel movie that, has a high concept, has a ton of action, has a ton of comedy, but is also really about something specific is kind of a dream come true.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for talking to us. Congratulations. Lovely movie. It was worth the tears. And I will keep forever those two quotes, which I think are so fantastic and so telling of how many people out there feel, many days, every day through their life. So a big kiss to you. Thank you so much, Ryan.
The feeling's mutual. Thank you so much for seeing the movie. Thank you for the interview. I appreciate it.
Take care.